everyone, and I'm an idiot because I've got my audio playing in the background. I'm really clever at this. I apologize profusely if it's not a stream on my channel without a technical issue. Hi everyone, and welcome to another Stump Jen. I know it's been a while because I haven't felt like being stumped for a while, so you know I've sort of taken my sexual pleasures elsewhere. No, seriously. What with all the move and everything, this is probably the first chance I've really had to do a Stump Jen, and I'm kind of looking forward to it again. I will admit that over the last month or so, I haven't done much reading on science journals or science news in general, so I'm a little bit behind on the 8 ball here, so a good chance for everyone to stump me on anything. But I am really well acquainted now with putting up gyprock. Gyprock, you know, mudding in the joints, sanding it back, and putting on undercut. I'm also pretty cluey now on how to treat old plaster before you paint it and do it on the cheap, so you don't have to buy the really expensive oil-based paints. So I probably know more about plaster and gypsum and gyprock than I've ever known in my entire life, but it's definitely been interesting. Tonight, so far, I've got a couple of people who've joined me. So everyone, please say hi to the always lovely Sam Chaos and to Jeff, the Godless Scummer.
Hello.
Hi guys, how are you?
Hello. Doing pretty good.
I can't hear nobody.
You can't hear anyone? We hear you.
Drop me a second. I can't hear you since you've been come in.
How was that?
That's odd. Can you hear us now?
Okay, that's weird.
Testing 1 2.
That's strange.
Well, we can hear each other, so it's you, Jeff. It's definitely you. He can't hear us, so I don't know why I'm saying this. Better tell him though. So okay, yeah. So hi everyone in the chat. Hi there to Harmonica Man, Nerdy, Junie, and anyone else who's lurking in the background there. It's always a pleasure to have everyone show up and join in the fun there. Jeff's going to drop out and come back in so that hopefully his audio will work now.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
You know, if everyone on the panel could hear each other.
Yep. Hi, Sandy. I didn't realize there were other streams going at the moment. I didn't look, to be perfectly honest. I know Scientist Mel starts in about an hour usually, or an hour or two, depending. No, probably be about 2 hours before she starts because it's normally midnight for me when Mel starts. I usually try to finish in time. Sorry?
I do not know who's streaming at the moment.
Yeah, I've got no idea who's streaming at the moment. It's not somebody I'm obviously subscribed to, so that's okay. I don't mind.
Yes. So we've got one from Harmonica Man. The skunk thought the stump stunk, and the stump thought the skunk stunk.
Tongue twister time. Well done,
Yep.
Sam. You did it well. You did it really well.
Why,
It's always
thank you.
hard when
It's
you're reading them too.
It's significantly easier than when I was trying to do a Polish one yesterday. Which, needless to say, I failed miserably at.
Okay, the probability of there actually being a Bigfoot is pretty damn low. I mean,
I think that depends what you mean by Bigfoot.
Yeah, it does. If you mean historically, was there a really large ape that we could have perceived as Bigfoot? Yeah, that's 100%. I'd say it's almost 100% chance there was a super large ape.
Highly probable.
Yeah, I find that one highly probable. Is there still a really large ape that walks around in, the American forests? Unlikely. We'd see more evidence for it than the very bad evidence that we have now. I mean, unfortunately,
I think that the other thing is I have I've heard the usage of the term Bigfoot really uncommonly, but I've known a couple of people who just use it to mean undiscovered species, in which case, certainly.
Yeah.
Like, just to kind of cover all the bases I'm aware of there.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's just really unlikely. Sorry, Jay. I know you love conspiracies, but yeah, it's just signed. It's unlikely. The problem we have with something like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness monster is you would have to have a large enough population of them to maintain breeding, or else they will go extinct. You have the same problems with them that we have with tigers now, and we've got bugger all tigers left in the wild, and yet they're still seen by lots of people. So if you had enough to have a smaller breeding amount in there, we would see
There'd
them,
have to be some
especially
freaky
a
genetics
large
involved.
animal. Yeah. Especially for a large animal. Now, if you're talking about a small animal, like if you're talking about a small mouse or small bird-sized animal, yeah, very easy for us to miss them because they're smaller, harder to notice if their population dwindles, but doesn't dwindle enough that they go extinct. So, yeah, it's unlikely for any large creature that people talk about to still exist and us not really know about it. There are a few exceptions to that. And that would
add specifically land creatures.
Yes, specifically land creatures. The biggest exception would be things that are in the ocean, because the ocean's enormous and we have not explored that much of it. Especially anything that could be deep sea. Yeah, anything that could be deep sea. There could be enough. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to have megalodons still alive somewhere, because they would come into more coastal areas to feed like modern sharks do. So we would damn well see them.
Yeah.
But other deep sea style animals, yeah, it's possible they exist. I mean, we already had that with the what's that fish called that I mean, it still has evolved from what it was, but it basically looks the same as it did during the time of the dinosaurs. And I can't remember what the name of the fish is. I'm terribly sorry.
Unless you're trying to say crocodile, I don't know.
No, it's not a crocodile. It's actually a fish.
Yeah.
I know the one you're talking about. I can't think for the life of me.
It's Scanthiosaur or something like that. Oh, yeah, Coelacanth. Thank you, Harmonica Man.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. Because they thought this thing was extinct for centuries, didn't they? Then they found one.
Millions of years.
Yeah.
Like they thought it went extinct at about 40 million years ago. You know, they knew that post existed the dinosaurs, but they pretty much thought they were exist, and then they found a decent sized population off this island, and it's like
you can tell I've been reading about cosmology. When I think 40 million years, that's not that long.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not that long. But in terms of evolution, it is. See,
it is.
In
evolution terms, it's long. In cosmological terms, less so.
I mean, our planet is 4.5 billion years old, but there's only been complex cellular life on this planet for about 300 million years. So, whilst we've had singular cell life forms and maybe a few complex, you know, tiny multicellulars earlier than that, we have to go to fairly close in our geological timeline before we actually start getting an expansion of more complex animals. So 40 million years of that is a decent fraction.
Oh yeah, it's a big chunk. It's and we also.
I think this is the problem that cryptids have, isn't it? As a problem.
What do you mean cryptids have a problem? I'm a cryptid.
Yeah. You know what I mean by that.
I know what you mean.
Who wants to answer Jay's next question about time travel?
We missed the question from Nerdy, I think.
Did we? Okay, what was Nerdy's question?
Mammals typically breathe through the nose or the mouth. Could they breathe through their intestines?
Well, that would be complicated because... I mean, are you suggesting, Nudie, they might breathe through their ass? because you'd need an external, you'd need a source of oxygen.
Gestures vaguely at Donald Trump.
Yeah, breathe through his ass. You'd need a source of oxygen for them to be able to breathe, and the intestines is basically filled up with fluids. So
I think it also depends how you define intestine. If you define it by being a lineage from previously inherited intestines, or if you define it by its functionality. Because if you define it by its functionality, then no. But it could, I guess, in theory, you have an intestine evolve into a breathing organ that allows oxygen in.
That's possible.
Maybe in theory.
Yeah.
I was just going to tackle Jay's question though. Vote for a Republican next time you have the Republicans. Next time you have an election, you'll go back in time at least 50 years.
Love it, Jeff.
Oh dear. So forwards in time, we are fairly sure we can do.
Well, we do it backwards, now. We travel forwards in time. That's how the Tower of Time works. It moves forwards.
I mean, even this is where we get into theories of time and stuff like that. And
well, time dilation itself allows you to travel forwards. I was going to say
time dilation is a fairly well accepted thing. So we could, in the way I think Jay is meaning, travel forwards in time, backwards in time. We are not currently aware of anything that would allow us to do that, but that's not to say there isn't some undiscovered mechanic of the universe that would
at the moment we don't know of any mechanic within the universe that enables travel backwards in time. Having said that, there was recently a set of experiments done involving quantum entangled particles where they entangled the particles and then did observations on the entangled particle and used that observation to predict the function of the other particle. This is in response to an old paradox that was called Wigner's.
The twin paradox.
No, Wigner's paradox. It's called Wigner's friend is actually the theory that comes from. Basically, it's this concept that if you have quantum entangled pairs, then you could conceivably run an experiment where the outcome of the experiment determines how the experiment was conducted.
See, I always feel slightly silly now because I know both of those thought experiments and I mixed the two up.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because of the way it works. They're basically saying the result precedes the process of the experiment. So you can't perform the experiment unless you have taken the result, which is almost like quantum mechanics is saying to you, I don't give a fuck about time.
Now, here's a fun question I've just thought of. How would we measure traveling through time? Let's say we traveled forward through time twice as fast as we currently are doing.
Yeah.
Would we be traveling at 2 seconds per second? And would that mean the value is just 2?
I mean, I thought 88 miles per hour was the speed you needed to travel at anyway.
Oh, there's a reference.
Someone had to
not many will get.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant old sci-fi reference there, Jeff. I love it.
Well, you can question for you, Sam. By the way, from Jay.
What was that? Sorry, my audio cut out a sec.
Yeah, Jay's got a question for you, actually.
Because he already knows Jeff's and my answers.
Yeah. What does Sam think on the existence of Atlantis?
My thoughts on Atlantis are that there may have been a physical place called Atlantis, but most things attributed to Atlantis are an excuse to say, people of color couldn't have invented XYZ thing in the ancient world, in my experience. So most references to Atlantis, I would say, are ridiculous. Though the idea of a settlement sinking into a body of water is absolutely not unheard of, because humans have built on bodies of water before.
Mm-hmm.
So could it be referencing a grain of truth? Yes. Is even a fraction of the things attributed to Atlantis true? No.
It's an amalgam thing in much the same way as a lot of the stories of Jesus are. They're amalgams. So you've got all these legendary things that happened and then they get mixed together because they all sound good. We know there are islands that through volcanic activities sunk beneath the waves, and there've been other places that have done similar things where we've lost chunks of coast because of earthquakes or volcanoes or whatever else, and so that sort of thing happens all the time. Well, geologically speaking, so it's easy to go, oh, these things happen within the living memories of people. These other things sort of happened, and then someone like Plato comes along and goes, hey, this is a brilliant way to write a story about how society should be.
Yeah, I mean, Atlantis is a thought experiment in Plato's dialogues. But yeah, there are evidence of sunken cities. I mean, there's a whole list of them. You look at Paphlopetri in Greece, for example. Obviously, Port Royal, Jamaica, even. So is it possible? Is it possible? Is a grain of truth in that story? Possibly, but I'm kind of with Sam on this one. That if there was a place called Atlantis, the things attributed to it just no.
Now, I will say that I don't find it completely impossible that they were slightly more advanced than other groups around them if they were building on water at a specific time, because different societies develop in different directions at different paces, which is actually a thing I literally talked with Maddie and Will about in an episode of Pub Religion we recently recorded.
So an upcoming episode.
Yes. So
there's a teaser.
So my general thing there would be they might have developed different technology, and at best you might be able to say some of their technology helped surrounding civilizations they traded with, at best.
Neddy's got an awesome question, and there was a paper on this fairly recently, so I said I didn't read any papers. I actually didn't read this paper, I read the abstract. They know that pretty much, Jenny, a good compass is pretty much the answer. But basically, sharks have a gland within them that operates like a compass. In much the same way as birds can detect the magnetic fields of the Earth, sharks can too, and they can navigate by detecting the magnetic field of the Earth, which is kind of brilliant, actually. We can't. We're useless.
Or it's it gets caught in a very, very big sharknado.
It can hear the call of Cthulhu. Dear.
And to Jay's question, Heracles or Hercules, I'm a Hellenist, specifically a Greek Hellenist, therefore Heracles. However, Hercules is acceptable.
Yep.
I've heard somebody pronounce it Heraclitus.
Okay then.
It sounds dreadfully like hairy clitoris.
It sounds like I was about to say it sounds like an STD of some description.
I think first time I ever read anything about any of the Greek myths, it was through Ladybird books, which are like children's books, and
I remember them.
And in the one I had, they actually called the character Heracles as opposed to Hercules. So I actually knew the character as Heracles first, but everyone else used to say Hercules. The Romanized version is more popular.
So Alias Fake Names asked, how do eels reproduce? I would assume that like most other aquatic animals, it's a release of egg and sperm into the water. Unless, of course, you're going for the joke and you're referring to electric eels, in which case it's carefully.
Now, see, actually, here's a fun thing: is that, despite us having knowledge of like migration patterns of eels, scientists have never observed eels mating in the wild
Really?
or found an eel egg ever.
Wow.
So we have leading theories, but not an actual known thing.
On how they mate in the wild. Yes, but we know how they have sex.
So the kind of general leading theory is, if I remember correctly, something about basically a female eel releases a bunch of free-floating eggs, and a male eel just releases a bunch of sperm into the general area.
Ah. Yeah, so more like the way that fish do it.
Yeah.
And frogs. Yeah. Well, most fish and frogs.
Yeah.
That doesn't work out that way. I keep saying fish, but technically there is no such thing as a fish.
This is true. That gets weird though.
Yeah, it does.
We all know what we mean by fish.
We all know what we mean by fish, yeah.
Oh, Chris is in the chat.
Oh, hey, Chris.
Oh, he's not for long, no. I'll look at it.
Fair. It's getting late.
Hey, Chris.
Over in Oslo, isn't it? So. I apologize for the info dump I just did. That was a bit of the information is stored in this way in my brain, so that's how it's coming out.
Yeah, that's what normally happens with the stuff that I get stuck in my head. It just comes out the way I kind of remember it. So, even when I've studied something for a long period of time, it's there's this process that I have to go through. It's almost OCD. Almost. I won't say it is OCD.
Almost.
I don't mind if I miss a bit. Only if I'm wrong. That's the one that annoys me, is when I'm wrong. That's why I do this, because it annoys me when I'm wrong, but I like to find out I'm wrong so I can be corrected and get it right. And I hate the way that the shadow from that makes it look like I've got an eyebrow that goes like that. I might turn that a little.
Now see, Jenny asks an interesting question. Why are they called tapirs when their nose actually ends quite bluntly? If I were to guess, something native linguistics.
Oh, more than likely. That really didn't improve it.
I would have no idea. I would have no idea.
Like, I don't actually know, but that's my educated guess, is native linguistics and having that either bastardized into English or a loan word.
Yeah, I have no idea the etymology of that word, so...
No.
That's one of those I'm tempted to Google now and see if I'm right.
Night, Chris.
Night, Chris.
Oh, sorry, Jen. I just realised Jenny's in the back. I'm sorry, Jen. I asked you to come in and I'm oblivious. Yes. Hi, Jenny. How are you doing?
Hey, Jenny.
How are you guys?
I don't like the fact that you've called yourself House Dummy, because you definitely aren't. I mean, you've been on too many of these streams and on too many other streams where you've shared your knowledge, and yeah.
I just know my place in the sequence here. That's all.
You're up there with us, Jen. Don't worry. We're all amateurs here. None of us are professionals.
That was a dumb question about tapirs. Come on.
Yes, but also I saw it and it sparked off a thought process in my head.
Oh, what one has stumped everyone? What's that I lose fake name?
The eel thing.
Oh, the eel thing. Ah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be happy to find out Ali's fake name, because that's the point. I love learning new things. So if you want to tell us, please feel free. I'm happy to accept that I don't know everything, because I definitely don't.
Yeah. Oh dear. See, now Nerdy has asked another question that's sort of speaking my language a bit here. What's the difference between the two swords, Excalibur and
the answer to this. Can I answer this one?
Yeah.
Can I answer this one?
Go on, Jeff. Oh, yours, Jeff.
Right. Caliburn is the name of the sword in the stone. Excalibur was a sword given to Arthur by the Lady of the Lake. Most people think Excalibur was the only sword in the Arthurian stories. It's not so.
No, because the sword, Arthur broke the sword in the stone.
Yeah, that sword was called Caliburn.
Yeah.
Now, there's that would have been my answer with an asterisk that's specifically the Cornish version of the myth, because there were several versions.
Yeah.
Like there was a story of the sword in the stone. There was I think a Welsh version. Might even have been a French version too, which I think is where the word Caliburn comes from.
Her arm clad in the purest shimmering samite, held aloft the Excalibur from the bosom of the water. And that is why I'm your king! Sorry. I love Monty Python.
It's all good.
It is good.
Highly amusing.
But it was a bunch of hooey.
It was. Well, I mean, it's another one of those legends things. I'm sure there were lots of little bits of it that happened. Various things and stories that were adapted from, but King Arthur himself didn't exist.
King Arthur himself probably didn't exist.
Probably didn't. It's one of those things. Could it have been based on a real historical figure or a number of different historical figures? Possibly. Some chieftain or whatever. It's possible, but there's no historical basis for King Arthur. No. And let's just say if there was someone though of that, and of the, if there was a historical King Arthur, it would be nothing like what you see in this sort of Middle Ages knights in shining. This was a dark age. This would have been like Camelot would have probably been more like a dark age hill fort than anything else.
See, I don't know if have you ever been to Tintagel, Jeff?
Long time ago.
A lot of the kind of stuff they have around Arthurian legend there is very fun. I just enjoyed wandering around Merlin's cave for a bit.
Yeah. That's a similar thing like Glastonbury as well, but then you kind of know because Glastonbury, is according to legend is the old Isle of Avalon, but you also know that there's a town that is really cashing in on the Arthurian connection like hell. So yeah.
Oh, I mean, yes. I mean, there are certain elements of the Arthurian legend that are probably based on things that really did happen. There was quite possibly a wise man who the concept of Merlin was based from as well. Yeah. I mean, there were druids back then, and there were those of them who knew about potions, who were wise and could read,
could invoke.
You could tell the future and things. There were people who fitted that sort of bill. They weren't the big magic man of the Arthurian legends who really, who cast down lightning and things like that. But it's quite probable that a person that Merlin was based from even existed. So,
one of my favorite things about kind of discussing Arthurian legend is when someone tries to tell me that the Morrigan is an evil entity because Morrigan the Fae is based off the Morrigan.
No.
Yeah. Morgana.
It's like, that's Morgana the Fae, sorry. Words.
Isn't it La Fae or is it De Fae?
No, I said La. That's just my accent.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Sam.
I was just going to say it's actually this because this is the thing with the book, with a lot of the books and stuff, that the names of these characters change slightly, where one of them it's Morgan Le Fay, and it's Morgane or Morgana. There's all sorts of.
Well,
different...
Merlin was like Meriden, and
If it has any amount of Morgan in it, I'm sure it's Elo.
Yeah.
Well played, Jen.
Morgan Le Jenny.
Ooh.
And it's not a first name; it's a surname. People bastardizing who they think they are.
It could have been.
But the names wouldn't have been anything like that anyway, because you'd be going back to or even pre-Old English. You'd be going back to early Saxon.
Anglo-Saxon.
Anglo-Saxon.
Brit. Yeah, because if the myths have a Briton sort of origin, it would have been like the sort of Welsh or Cornish kind of language.
Yeah, it would have been it would have been a blended historical lange with Latin, wouldn't it? Because it is post-Roman. So
depends on the exact timing. Because if it was 9th century, is a bit different to if it was actually a bit earlier than we think it might have been. Because that can happen.
Yeah.
Well, I think generally the accepted sort of time period of myths is the sort of like 100 years sort of post-Roman Empire period. Also, it's generally the accepted time period, because once we start getting to sort of like what you said, 9th century, we're starting to get like historical records a bit more then as well.
Yeah, because I've heard late figures of 9th century and kind of earlier figures of significantly earlier.
Yeah, that's so like that
would have been that would have been a very late figure.
It would have had to have been 9th century.
I mean, you got to remember
or a bit before. So because the historical records are too good since. So this is why we're pretty sure Robin Hood didn't actually exist.
Well, you got to
you say that, but Robin Hood as a person, we're not actually certain if he exists, because there is like a recorded grave for him, and like I live like half an hour away from Little John's grave.
Yeah.
See, I watched just like 2 weeks ago. Watched the episode of the Time Tunnel where they went back and ran into Robin Hood. So I'm pretty sure he's real.
And the Doctor met him too. So I mean,
see, massive evidence.
Yeah, I mean,
but historical records of him are poor.
Yeah,
as a wayward a fighter for justice or a highwayman or anything like that it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's another one of those amalgam things.
That's a later,
I imagine.
Oh, it's well and truly a later edition. And I mean, if you actually look at the stories, it's mixed across multiple different centuries, so it's impossible for it to have happened in any way, shape, or form.
There's actually...
Well, I think
Oh, go on, sorry, Jeff.
I was going to say the first reference, to the character Robin Hood was in a poem called Piers Plowman, which is a sort of, there's loads of different versions of that. But it's one of those things. It kind of more and more as it went along took on a life of its own, and you get to sort of a later period when they start making the character like a disinherited noble or something like that, which is and stuff like that. It was almost a bit bloody. It's always a little bit cheeky that they took away a sort of hero of the poor people and gave him a noble birth, which is what tends to be what happens.
Yeah.
With those.
Now, see, I actually
that's
have
what
a
happens.
really funny
Sorry, Sam.
thing. I have a really bizarre thing near me in relation to Robin Hood, actually, where there's a story that I think it was in like the 11th century or something. Supposedly Robin Hood came through here, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
Are you saying that rich people would co-opt history for their own benefit?
I know, right?
I don't know there was so
Adopted
much the rich
history.
people
They're
co-opting
adopted.
the history for their own benefit at that point. It was more the case that the poets and minstrels, and because the minstrels were poets as well. I mean, they wrote the songs and things that, you know, the stories were passed down through songs as much as written works because that's what people remembered. So that the people who wrote that stuff, when they were expanding on the stories to make them a nobleman who came down and helped the poor, and you know, that romanticized the story to a certain extent rather than just being, you didn't want just the poor person going out and doing the thing. You wanted this because it's about that dream building stuff that it comes into fiction, and if you can elaborate on the story in that sort of way,
I'm actually going to say what Seraphim said, that in my head canon, the real Robin Hood was indeed a fox, and Prince John was a lion that used to suck on his thumb. Like
that is the most accurate depiction of Robin Hood.
That is in my head canon. That is Robin Hood.
I love that. I love that. The Disney.
So Robin Hood went around sucking people off, is what they're saying.
No, that was Prince John.
I don't know how you got to that out of that. Okay.
Well, you know, I'm simple. I get confused.
But I mean, they're not the only examples of romanticized or elaborated on stories. I mean, like, you've got things like Johnny Appleseed in the US, and
they happen all the time.
Yeah, it's a constant thing, which takes you back to that whole thing of why should Christians believe that Jesus is any different?
Something lunatic by a lot.
I better keep quiet on this one. I'm not. Should you say I'm not sold on mythicism either? So because there's a lot of.
No, but I mean it's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean there are probably elements of truth to all these stories, like King Arthur, Robin Hood, to Johnny Appleseed, or any of the other ones that come through. There are elements of truth to them, just as there is for Jesus. To say he was completely a fabrication, I think is not really understanding the way that history in that sense gets written, because usually in that sense it's not, people didn't write fiction like that. They based it off something that had happened or stories that they'd already heard, and that, so it's more likely a case that Jesus is either an amalgam or an exaggeration on something.
I mean, that actually, to be the pedant in the room a minute, because a significant portion of the New Testament was written in Greek, and the typical Greek method of storytelling actually involved a significant portion of fiction. Like, the ancient Greeks didn't believe their myths were literally real.
Yeah.
Then you can argue that they would have that the meanings of the story might genuinely not have been to suggest Jesus was an actual person who performed miracles.
No, it's very true.
And so, because of this, it is very plausible that it was actually written as fiction.
It's plausible.
I still think, actually, I think it's not probable. I'm just saying it's plausible. That's one of those. Yeah. I don't discard mythicism. I just say I don't think there's sufficient evidence.
I don't discard mythicism, but I get a little bit cranky with people that think it's accepted history.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I think you've got a problem with mythicism in that there's a few reaches that mythicism has to excuse itself from some of the rules that are used in deciding historical facts to say that Jesus is purely mythicism, because there are some aspects of the Jesus story that do pass muster, as well as some other historical figures who we do accept existed.
Let's presume that the story was intentionally written in fiction. To what end?
Oh, it would have been an
To create
education
a
tool.
better, to create a better cultural understanding. The stories like that were quite often written to say, here is like effectively an allegory about our culture. And both Jews when they were polytheistic, I don't know about Jews when they were monotheistic, I've not read up on that. But both them and the Greeks used allegory really frequently, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Or it could have been, or it could have been that the Roman Emperor Vespasian got Josephus to invent Christianity. No, sorry, I'm being a facetious prick there. Sorry,
let's fuck this Jews up by inventing their Messiah for them.
That is a theory. That is a theory posited by. See, I'm pretty sure it was Will who brought this book up on the stream just to trigger me. Book called Caesar's Messiah, which a lot of atheists were parroting about, and I'm not being funny. That is to history. That is to history what flat Earth is to science. It is that bad, and it was the most ridiculous. You don't even really know. It's just one of those things. If you read that at any degree of critical thinking, you don't have to be an expert in history to just know that this guy is reaching and weaving together conspiracy theories.
I should invite Ranty onto one of these shows. It'd be really interesting.
It would.
No, you just made me think of that when you said flat Earth. So it'd be. I mean, because as an ex-flat earther, he'd be interesting to talk to, especially when you're talking about.
Ranty or Seek Truth, Speak Truth would be another good one. He's a nice guy as well.
I love how.
See, maybe instead of getting either of them on, you should just get the person who took over from Ranty on. That'd go well.
I don't know. I don't know who's looking after that channel now, but
Ranty's original channel.
Yeah. There's someone. He handed it off to someone, didn't he? But I don't know who it was. But we don't want Sleeping Warrior on here, though. So, sorry.
I think it's hilarious how, despite Ranty's considerable acceptance and admiration in the flat Earth community for such a long time, is that now he, with his foray into understanding that the Earth really is a globe, that so many people have not followed him at all.
Yeah, it's like
just instantly rejected whatever he has to say and call him all the names that they've always called us. That I just find it fascinating as a group how they could not, how none of them seem to be able to process it.
It's dead interesting that I think they have this image in their head that they are right, and anyone who becomes convinced otherwise has become brainwashed. Almost like this weird sort of zombie movie thing where once someone's been bitten, you assume they're the enemy.
Yeah.
And that's a really dumb like metaphor to use there, but I can't think of something better off the top of my head.
But this is the thing, though. Whenever even when one of their own makes the flat Earth look pretty dumb, shall we say? They don't have to leave flat Earth, but you have people saying that they're like infiltrators and stuff. Like, all the people said that about Mark Sargent and Patricia Steer, that they were infiltrating flat Earth as a controlled opposition kind of thing. And it's mainly because Mark Sargent has made them look bloody stupid on so many occasions, and Patricia Steer as well. Even though I do think
stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, stupider than that. I mean, they look stupid. Where they realise they look stupid.
Yeah. Which is some feat in certain cases.
Oh yeah.
Well, the fact that you had all those other flat earthers trying to tell Nathan Thompson that he was being pranked whilst this thing was going on.
That was brilliant.
They were telling him, but it was just because those two, Reckless Ben and that other guy, just stroked Nathan's ego in the right way. Nathan just was not willing to see what was right in front of his eyes.
It was so good. Yeah, you know the funniest thing about that is it happened not very far from where Will lives.
Mm.
So if Will had realised it was happening when it was, he could have gone up there and done his own filming of
Yeah,
it.
I heard about I heard about the duck suit thing, but it wasn't until it was released I saw the thing with them with the toilet paper.
The toilet paper thing was brilliant.
That was I couldn't believe this. So if you folded toilet paper X amount of times, it would build so high that it would get to the moon, and the fact they were out there getting Nathan to it was so funny.
It was brilliant.
It was so funny.
It amazes me how certain people can just be convinced to do the weirdest shit.
Oh,
I mean, you could convince me to do the weirdest shit, granted, but you would just have to suggest it and say, "Hey, this would be funny."
Did this occur in the same thing as the chicken suit guys?
It's the same, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Oh my god, I haven't seen the whole complete thing yet, so I'm looking forward to it now.
It's about a 4 or 5 part thing, isn't it?
They absolutely tore him apart.
I need to go back and actually watch that because I've just heard synopses from different people.
Apparently, originally they tried to get Mark Sargent on board for what they were doing or whatever, but I don't know whether either Mark Sargent sensed it was a trap or just couldn't do it or whatever. I don't know, but they did. So I think the next name they could find was Nathan Thompson. And
I can't believe Mark Sargent would fall for that. He just seems much smarter than me.
I don't even think Mark Sargent fucking believes flat Earth.
I believe you could convince Nathan of anything. He is so stupid. he is legitimately.
You could convince him of any falsehood.
Yeah.
You couldn't convince him of any true fact.
You might be able to if you packaged it as.
See, I feel a bit sorry for him. I'd feel a bit sorry for him if, like, he was just stupid but a nice guy, but he's stupid and a complete fucking arsehole to boot. So I just, I just can't feel sorry for Nathan Thompson.
There's a difference between the lovable idiot and the wanker.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's insulting to wankers personally to compare them to Nathan Thompson. To be honest, but...
the Earth is actually slightly convex.
I would really like to see a legitimate. I don't know, psychosocial studies done on the flat Earth as a movement, and
that would be interesting.
An example of how far people can be taken outside of reality. Just by con artists.
Well, I mean, the things you can convince people of if you go to the effort of it, it is amazing.
It is. It's really bizarre, and I have a whole rant, but. I've mentioned spirit science to you guys, right?
Yeah, we've all known about spirit science. I've done some debunkings of spirit science.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, occasionally I'll mention it and someone will be like, "Who?" But I was fairly sure you guys. So I have are you guys familiar with Teal Swan as well?
Yes.
Jenny, are you?
With what?
Teal Swan.
Teal Swan? No. I've heard of Black Swan.
So Teal Swan is this like new agey, basically cult leader YouTuber.
Oh.
Isn't Teal Swan the same person who Andy Fellows was part of the cult originally?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And actually, my favorite bit about that is that at one point she ended up putting out a statement that that Teal Swan is not a cult.
Really?
So, more my point to this is that one of my close friends, their parents buy into both spirit science and Teal Swan.
Okay.
He actually believes spirit science?
That's right. I've got a friend who buys stuff from spirit science.
But it makes it almost impossible to have a conversation with them, because I'll say something innocuous like, "Oh yeah, I was wearing my mask earlier," and then, "Oh no, you're wearing a mask."
It's just
That's incredible. It's just incredible.
Oh, it is. I mean, I think Spirit Science. I think he's a bit like Mark Sargent, where he doesn't actually believe his own bullshit.
You know, a television season is what, 26 weeks long. I think there's at least that many absolutely inane cults out there that it would make a wonderful public television documentary series on just how insane these people are. Each week a different nutcase.
That would certainly be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, in relation to what Almost a Doctor was saying, that it's probably a condition, but people who buy into it, like a condition called schizotypy. I assume that's how it's said. But
schizotypy, maybe?
Schizotypy, yeah. I'm not sure. But I mean, it does seem to be the case that people who follow one conspiracy tend to follow a lot of them. People who have that kind of personality where they're easily convinced by these things tend to follow them. Now, I'll admit, when I was younger, I really, really wanted the Loch Ness Monster to be real. I am older. Nice. I am older and more sensible now, and I realize that I've been to Loch Ness. I know that whilst it's a big lake, it's not that bloody big, and there's no way you could have a family of very large animals living in that, enough to keep it going for the hundreds of years that the legend is so.
Secret. It's just the Loch Ness Monster is just a water phoenix. There's only one of it.
Oh, so it lives forever.
Yes,
it's an immortal spiritual being.
Clearly,
no, but I mean, if it was a natural animal, you would have to have a viable population to keep it going over those few hundred years. You know, at that point, you're not just got one Nessie coming up to the surface. You've got probably a good 15 or 16 over that time frame, at least. Lots more people would have seen it. They put cameras that they've sat at the edge of the lake for days and weeks and not seen a bloody thing except a duck or a log go across the top. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, but where did those logs come from? Nessie could have put them.
Nessie put them there to hide behind when they surfaced.
So those logs are proof.
I agree with Matt. There's some really good science behind what people are seeing. There are some very large sturgeon that appear in some of these lakes where the monsters are apparently seen. And I mean, from a distance, it is our minds play tricks on us. So it is very possible that you're seeing what is effectively a large fish creating a wake in the water. And because we are not good judges of distance, we think it's further away, so our brains assume that it's bigger than what it actually is. And then all of a sudden,
our brains are really bad at perspective.
Oh, our brains are dreadful at it. That whole thing's that these are near and those are far away. You know,
I think the current record for sturgeon in the United States is around 10 feet.
Which is a decent sized fish, and that can make a reasonably sized wake, and they will swim fairly close to the surface, which means they will create a wake. And if you, depending on the angle you're looking into the water, the time of day and everything, you will not be a good judge of how far away you are from something. And when your brain doesn't know that, it doesn't exactly know how big something is. We often misjudge things like that. This is it's one of those things that people get with signing UFOs, is that you can have a light that's in the sky but not know how far away it is, especially at night. But even during the day, I have seen an old bomber plane that was flying at a weird angle to me so that as the sun glinted off it, I couldn't see it as the outline of a plane, and it looked enormous to my view. But that was only my brain messing with me because of how glary it was, the angle it was at. I didn't know what it was until it changed its direction and I could see it shaped properly, and the glare went. Some of the glare went away. Now, I didn't instantly think it was aliens, but I didn't know what it was. So technically, it's a UFO because I didn't know what it is. But eventually, I figured it out.
Like the black and blue
I'm
dress
not saying
is
it's aliens, but it was aliens.
It wasn't.
I was going to say,
I think that a perfect example of this is just our brains require perspective to know how to interpret things, and the black and blue dress from a while ago that some people thought was white and gold.
Yes.
That was entirely because the human brain reads different types of light differently, and it depended what setting you assumed the dress was in.
And which also had a lot to do with the culture you came from.
Very true. Which is kind of because of this, it shows that when we have very little perspective, especially for example when it's dark, we have no sense of space.
No, we don't.
Space is fake.
Yeah, the dress was an amazing optical illusion. For me, oddly enough, I didn't see it the way anyone saw it.
I was going to say, because I was out when you were talking about a Loch Ness monster, but there's about 13 lochs in Scotland with quote unquote monsters or whatever.
Yeah.
Loch Ness is the one everyone talks about, but there's Loch Moa, which is a monster. Nessie's got Loch Ness has got Nessie, Loch Moa's got Morag. The
interesting thing about some of the other locks that supposedly have monsters in them is some of them wouldn't be deep enough to have a monster of that size in them.
Yeah.
Now, see, here's the trick: is the secretly tunnels connecting all of the locks, and that's where the population is.
Oh, so they live underground in the tunnels. I remember there was one story about a couple of the locks actually link into the ocean, so they think that there's the underground tunnels plus their way into the ocean, so the monsters aren't there all the time. They're sometimes out at sea.
Well, some of them do. Loch Linney certainly does. Which is another one that is supposedly kind of got a monster. That pretty much goes out towards the sea. It's near Fort William. Which is...
See, that's one I didn't know about, actually. Because I've been up near Fort William a bunch of times.
Yeah.
They live in the flat hollow earth. Yeah, Ox, that's what they do.
That's it. Ox has solved it.
There you go.
Wait a minute, how can it be flat and hollow?
Well, it's hollow underneath the flat bit.
Yeah.
Well, so what shape is it below that?
Oh, it's infinite. It goes all the way.
Yeah.
Well, then it's not exactly flat, is it? It's
an infinite plane that infinitely goes down.
Then it's a cube.
Is it, though? Technically, if you had an infinite plane that infinitely went down, and you went infinitely in every side, you'd have to have a sphere.
That depends on the nature of the universe, I guess.
It does. And actually, to be fair, we're fairly sure the universe is actually pretty much flat. So,
well, if they're going to claim that the Earth is an infinite plane, then why isn't it infinitely thick too?
Now, I want to check him on this, but my dad was telling me that he read a thing, I think in relation to maybe Brian Cox or someone, effectively of proposing a hypothesis that space is roughly flat, but is twisted in like a ribbon shape.
I haven't read that. There's an issue with this concept of space is flat. Our observable universe, as far as we can tell, is flat. Given that we have no actual idea how big the actual universe is, it's quite possible that the universe itself is spherical. It's just that it's
See, I
so
was gonna say,
immensely
is the
huge that we
universe just a-
cannot tell.
Maybe the universe is just a big fuck-off halo ring, and we're orbiting a massive planet that we can't see.
It could be.
Something quick conspiracy
I mean,
theories.
expansion of the universe. If we are, if the universe is a membrane that's like a bubble that's constantly expanding, that explains the expansion of the universe quite simply. But for that, the universe itself would have to be more spherical.
My Christian religion always taught me that the Earth was going to end in a ball of fire. So that told me as a kid that the Earth and the solar system and everything is really just an ion in a sulfur atom, and at some point somebody's going to light the match.
Well, it will end in a ball of fire one day. It's called the sun.
Well, maybe not. We might survive outside of it because
The Earth itself, not necessarily to say our species.
No. The Earth itself may. The problem we have is we're not exactly sure how far out the sun will expand, and secondly, when the sun expands, that expansion actually does push the planets outward as well. So Earth's orbit will actually shift outwards slightly whilst the sun's expanding. Now, if the amount the Earth's orbit gets pushed out is enough to compensate for the expansion of the sun, it won't get engulfed in the sun when it expands. It will get exploded around, and there'll only be it may not survive that.
Also,
although not technically exploded because the sun's not big enough to actually explode. What it does is it throws off its outer shell and collapses.
Also, depending on how hopeful you want to be, if we get high up enough on the Kardashev scale, we could plausibly just move our planet.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we'd need to at that point, but we could.
I like the fact that Matt was typing what I just said. But he won't know I was saying it before he typed it because of the delay.
Where would you move it to? Where would you move it to?
What, the Earth?
Yeah.
Oh, you could move it to another solar system.
Really? How are you going to do this about the energy?
In all honesty, if you want our star to survive longer, the best way is to solar mine. And what you can actually do is, if you can engineer at this sort of scale, you can actually pull matter off the sun. So if you decrease the size of the sun will burn for longer. So we could basically engineer our sun into a slightly smaller star, which means there'll be less heat. That way, global warming is actually a good thing for us, and our star will live longer. So we could technically engineer our sun to last longer.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the point at which we would probably have access to interstellar travel at this point. Like, I don't know why we'd put the effort in.
Yeah. Well, you can move a star. You can move the. You can actually change the way the star. Well, the star moves. The sun moves anyway, but you can change the way the sun's orbit is using the energy of the sun itself to do that. If you can build a Dyson sphere or a Dyson swarm, you can do all these things because the engineering involved to build a Dyson swarm is exactly the same for star mining or for moving a star.
I've got this
solar system to build a Dyson sphere around the sun.
To be honest, I just got this nasty feeling. I think Ox may have made a point here that I may agree with. I just think we're going to we're going to be extinct before this fucking ever happens. I think we are going to fuck ourselves up. We are so badly.
There's a reason I said if we can get higher up on the Kardashev scale. If
we were higher. Well, I mean, they've kind of abandoned the Kardashev scale for a new scale, which I haven't read all the documents on yet, but because they think the Kardashev's a little bit inaccurate. They've also
I mean, in fairness, the Kardashev's actually very inaccurate. It's just it was the most useful frame of reference we had.
One of the things is the concepts within the Kardashev scale don't make a lot of sense as much sense now in terms of how we understand science to a certain degree.
If we could.
And the other concept of changing the way the Kardashev scale works is it also can help us solve the Fermi paradox. So.
I'm just wondering if we could actually move the Earth around where we wanted it to. Might we as well just put a big planet-killing laser on it as well. We could actually turn the Earth into the Death Star.
Oh, now you're reminding me of
That's
an episode
more...
of Invader Zim.
Mm.
That's more like a conversation I had with one of my mates than is potentially comfortable, where we basically said, what if we just turned the Earth into a giant, not the sun into a giant fuck-off laser and pointed it at any aliens we happened across?
Well, this is also a problem of if you can build a Dyson swarm, you can basically turn your star into a weapon. And as long as you're prepared to take as long as it takes light to get to another solar system, you could wipe out life in other star systems.
You wouldn't need to make the Earth a Death Star because it already is a Death Star. Nothing on it's going to survive much longer.
Well, that depends. I mean, see, there's an interesting... our ability to survive as a species, we may be able to survive the problems we've created. The vast majority of life on this planet will not. Whether or not the mass extinction of other species on this planet will affect us so much in the chain reaction that causes that we become extinct is the bigger question. Is the question that we don't have the answer to. So we're definitely causing mass extinctions. We are at the point now where we are not going to be able to stop that. That is going to happen. Whether that's how badly we fuck shit up.
We will not eradicate life on this planet, but we will eradicate human life.
It would take. We have the technology to solve the problems we've created to a certain extent. It would take a drastic.
We just won't do it.
Yes, it takes a drastic change in world politics, which is not going to happen because we are.
Let's be honest. It was going to take a revolutionary change in
world politics,
in the way we organise society, to actually get any of this to really address these problems.
We would have to become a socialist planet. For anyone who hates the idea of that. We effectively would have to become a socialist planet that puts the needs of us as a species above all else.
At the end of the day, I mean, the way we are going, great social change is coming one day in human society. Now, whether we are the agents of that change or the victims of that change is the only choice available to us now, really.
I mean, I talk about Dyson swarms. We couldn't build a Dyson sphere. I doubt any high level species could build a Dyson sphere. The engineering required for it is probably beyond the scope of what you could effectively do with the materials that actually exist in the universe. But
I think you could do it. I don't think it would be super efficient.
No, well, a Dyson swarm makes more sense anyway.
Oh, a Dyson swarm absolutely makes more sense. But if you really wanted to get a massive Dyson swarm and turn them into a Dyson sphere, you could in theory.
You could in theory, but I don't think you'd need to. I think you could get enough energy for the survival of a species without having to cover the entire star. A Dyson swarm is a lot harder to see from another planet as well. So, than a
weapons.
Sphere is. But we could... night, Matt. We could, technically now, with the political will and the willingness to spend the money on it, build a Dyson swarm now. We know how to build solar cells. We know how to beam energy around with microwaves, etc. We could build a Dyson swarm. We have the technology already to do that. And we wouldn't have to build a particularly large swarm to meet the energy needs of our planet. The problem is, once you've built that infrastructure, would you really be able to make good money from it? I don't think you would. It would have to be a works. It'd have to be a works thing that was done for the good of humanity rather than from the profit you could make from it. Cool. And that's why it won't happen, because we are even in places like China and any place that calls themselves communist now countries.
Yeah,
They are
right,
too
yeah.
capitalistically minded to ever
They
want
always
to
have
do
been.
this.
They always have
They are
been.
communist asterisk.
Yeah, that's right. They're not socialists. They're not about the betterment
They-
of the human race,
No, they're
and
not.
this
They
is
never
the
have
problem.
been.
No,
They
it
never
hasn't.
have been.
Nope.
You know, any of those societies, yeah, the process of accumulation, it's just, I mean, effectively, in a lot of ways, it's just in a lot of those, you know, like the USSR and China initially, it was just that really that the private property was replaced with state-owned property, and that was and look, you know, nation states can exploit people as much as private owners, you know.
The thing I think is that when you create a communist nation and that nation has to interact with other nations, it suddenly needs a form of currency and to interact capitalistically with other countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I mean, this was always the thing that it, you know, one country, it can't exist. It just cannot exist by itself in a vacuum like that. This was like, I mean, I used to hear them in like tankies telling me this for ages that the USSR wasn't competing with anyone. I'm like, really? I said,
Yeah.
So was not the arms race of America a fucking competition? You know, wasn't all of Stalin's 5 years plans driven by the need to compete? Of course it was.
To solve our problem of global warming at the moment and get future energy needs, and solve our future energy needs if we spent the money on it, if we started the building of a Dyson swarm at the Lagrange point that is between the Earth and the Sun, and we built it in such a way that it blocked out 2 to 3% of the sunlight that gets to the Earth, that would be enough to cool us down, to overcome some of the climate change that we've enacted on our planet, and give us enough energy, renewable energy, that there would be no energy shortages across the planet. Yes, it's an enormous undertaking. It would probably take us the best part of a century to do it. But at the moment, we would have that century to do it in, because of course, as slowly we're putting more and more stuff in the swarm, we are slowly cooling down the planet. We are also reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, so we're actually reducing our carbon footprint at the same time. So these two things support each other, and we can get to the point where we've got it balanced with the amount of energy we're getting from it, how much sun we're blocking out, and yeah, we basically have a swarm sitting in that Lagrange point, and it gives us a bit of solar protection. Not only that, it would also act as a bit of solar protection if we had a solar flare heading in our direction. Yeah, it'd take out a big chunk of the swarm, but it's better than a chunk of the planet.
Better that than us.
Yeah, exactly. So we could effectively, if there was the political and financial will to do it, build a Dyson swarm that could solve the problems that we have created for ourselves.
Why don't we just instead stop driving internal combustion engines and replant the Amazon forest and shoot anybody that cuts a tree down?
Well, the biggest lungs for the planet effect is the ocean, not the Amazon. So our bigger problem is what we're doing to the oceans than what we do to the Amazon. I mean, the Amazon's a problem, but it's not just the Amazon. The oceans are a bigger problem. The problem with global warming per se, especially with the oceans, is the ocean holds less CO2 the warmer it gets. And the ocean is the biggest sink for CO2 that we have on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So as the oceans get warmer, more CO2 is being released from those oceans back in the atmosphere, and that's the cycle that we are not able to stop. Also, fresh water holds less CO2 than salt water. So as we are melting the ice caps and putting more fresh water into the oceans, whilst that percentage change in salinity in the oceans is small,
the overall effect can
overall
add
effect
up.
can add up, and
We're
it's
talking
cycling.
about big numbers here.
Yeah, we are, and this is the problem we've got. And the fact is, the planet can't do it. There are ways that we can engineer. Well, if we solve our energy problems, if we have ways, if we start to build a Dyson swarm and we get massive amounts of extra energy that we don't know what to do with it, that is clean and not contributing to the problems that we're creating using fossil fuels, etc., etc. We can use that excess energy to pull carbon out of the atmosphere and create our own carbon sinks.
Thinking about all of these problems, there is one really easily identifiable factor that is an issue in all of it. Not to get political a second, but the big problem here is humans.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could solve the problem with fission reactors as well. We could build more nuclear power plants. Most modern breeder nuclear power plants are incredibly safe. We're not looking at having more Chernobyls if we built them. We could use the excess energy from those extra nuclear power plants to suck carbon out of the atmosphere. And in the same time as we're doing this, we can develop our space program to the point where we can store our waste off-world.
Yep.
Why not? Build a storage facility somewhere on the moon. We're not living up there, so it's safe to store it there.
Or we could shorten the lifespan of the sun ever so slightly and just chuck it in the sun.
Yep. That is really hard to do, though, Sam. Throwing something into the sun is incredibly difficult. You'd think it'd be easy. This big, enormous object with all this gravity.
I'm just being snarky. It is difficult. Because everything just goes, screw it, I'm orbiting now.
It's orbiting now, yeah, and that's the worst thing. If we throw it at the sun and it just orbits, we don't know where it's going to end up in the future. So that is
Jenny?
I still don't understand why that if you have a guidance system on whatever the hell you send up there, it's still going to be operative by the time it gets to Mercury or something like that. And then the distance between Mercury and the sun is close enough that there's nothing that's going to start orbiting. Some small craft is not going to start orbiting the sun. It's going to get sucked in like a vacuum.
Not how it works, Jen.
Yes, it is.
No.
I said so.
It's not. It really isn't. What will happen is that
because I said so.
That you have to have the correct to bring something into a planet's atmosphere, into a planet or a star. It has to be going at the right trajectory at the right speed. It's almost as complicated as getting things out of gravity wells to get them into them, because things effectively want to orbit. That's why most of the things that fly past the Earth, there's things all the time. Most of them don't actually hit the planet because their orbits just get bent because space-time is curved by the mass that's in it. So things follow the curves so they don't follow into it. This is the same problem for black holes. Yes, black holes have enormous amounts of gravity, and they have these big accretion disks, and things orbit for millennia around them before they fall in. It takes an enormously long amount of time for stuff to fall into a black hole. It's even worse because the time dilation effects.
My favorite term in relation.
We try.
Sorry, what was that?
My favorite term. We don't know till we try.
Oh, okay.
And to that end, I think we should start building a craft that can hold, say, 1,000 Republicans and send them all up at once.
Well, I mean, if you want to kill Republicans, and who doesn't?
I didn't say kill.
You only have to send them very close to the sun. I'm sure they won't have a good time.
Now, here's one for you, Jen. Is what Ox just asked in the chat. How can one say nuclear is safe when spent fuel is dangerous for thousands of years? Soon the planet will be one big spent graveyard.
Because breeder reactors. Oh, that, Jen. Go ahead.
Sorry?
I'll pretend I don't know. What?
Sorry, I was answering Will in the chat. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. So Ox had a question about how can we say nuclear is safe when it's going to last for thousands of years. Or the spent is going to last thousands of years.
Well, the fact of it is that the really, really dangerous waste that comes out of most nuclear power plants actually has is the shorter half-life stuff. And most of those have half-lives measured in the hundreds of years. This is why people, after nuclear bombs dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, could go back and live there, after a relatively short amount of time. It's why people can go and visit Chernobyl now after what happened, because, most of the really bad stuff is gone. It's still fairly high levels of radiation at Chernobyl now, but it's a lot less than you think it would be. The more longer lived isotopes are like most things tend down towards lead and iron as they decay down, so you get radioactive elements of lead and other things that other elements that are more stable and will actually stay radioactive longer. But these type of isotopes aren't going to have the type of radiation that comes from them that is actually likely to cause cancer in people and things like that. So, generally
besides
speaking,
which, with power plants, we can safely store an amount of it. And as a general rule, when people propose nuclear, they're not proposing it long term. They're just proposing it until we can actually convince the world's politicians that we need to go renewable.
Yeah,
and we also have to build them smarter. That if you're going to build them, you don't build them on geographic fault lines.
Oh yeah, you build them somewhere stable, and you pipe, pipe the electricity to where it's needed. But the other thing of that is like modern reactors, which are the breeder types that were developed in the US and then mothballed because people got scared about it. They actually feed the nuclear waste back. They feed the nuclear waste back into the reactor and use the current waste as one of the sinks for the neutrons within the reactor, which helps to split the atoms faster, which actually gets you to the more stable elements, even though they're still radioactive, but the ones that are lower down the table, which are less reactive within the human bodies and things like that. So yes, you have to store them for a long time, but no, they're not likely to kill anyone. So that's the whole point of those breeder reactors. And then you have things like you can go to thorium reactors, which A, can't go supercritical, and B, their byproducts are all either short-lived or not as radioactive anyway. So at that, and you get less nuclear waste from something like a thorium reactor than you do from a uranium one. So
and a thorium reactor can run basically on salt water.
Yeah, well, they use saltwater reactors. Yeah, they use thorium salts. So you're looking at these things like old style reactors, you've got lots of waste. New style breeder thorium reactors, you run the reactor for 40 years and you might have like 5 or 6 barrels of nuclear waste afterwards.
And we still have not untapped the potential of the science of hydrogen fuel cells. There has been great progress made in hydrogen fuel cells to be able to extract hydrogen from water.
Oh yeah.
And the byproduct is more water.
Yeah. Well, the hydrogen fuel cells are like batteries, so you still have to charge them up somehow. So
sure.
But that's where, as you invest in solar, as you invest in like a Dyson swarm or something like that, so that even if you don't want to build a Dyson swarm, you could build tracks on the moon and have large arrays of solar panels that moved very, very slowly around the moon's surface.
Jen, you really need to give up this Dyson swarm idea. It's all you think about. We can't do it. We're not going to do it. Stop it.
We can do it. That's the problem, Jenny. We can, but we're not going to, and that shits me off.
We don't have the materials and technology on such a scale as to be able to do that.
We actually do have the technology to do it.
We do.
Not
we just don't
scale.
have the funding.
Yeah.
Not at the scale.
Yeah, at the scale we could do it.
If we got global agreement to do it, we would have.
We could do it.
Okay,
Pretty
I'm gonna
much
go back.
immediately.
I have a question. How big does this have to be? Each unit in the swarm, how big does it have to be? And how many of those do we need?
You probably each unit probably wouldn't be any. Would be probably be smaller than what the ISS is.
Really?
You just have hundreds and thousands of them.
Yeah, and
And
like
how long
some
does it
of
take
that
to
might
build the
eventually
ISS?
be able to.
How much- how
That's
much
where
material
meteorite
can you-
mining is going to come in handy if we can manage to work that out.
But we have the resources on Earth to build the first part of the swarm.
Okay, and so now we're talking about something the size of the ISS. That means we're going to build a sphere that is basically.
We don't build a Dyson sphere, Jenny.
You're talking about a swarm, right?
Yes.
I thought these were all going to be spherical shaped to make.
No,
up
no,
the
they
swarm.
don't have to be spherical. They can just be like big ships with solar panels on them.
Okay, so we only have to build a couple thousand things that are the size of a football field in space, because you can't build them here and launch them into space because they're too fragile.
Yeah, but you can launch elements of them and join them together.
And how long is that going to take? How many rockets are we going to have to launch for that?
It'll take a while. I'm not saying it wouldn't.
Yeah, we'd have to take our bloody time with it.
Yeah, it would
And-
take time
and
to do it. I'm saying this is a project that would be so
This
a
is-
couple of generations project.
And if it's going to save
And-
us from global warming, how long does it need to take before we're toast from global warming?
And this is why I throw out nuclear as well as renewable as things
Yes.
we need to implement now.
Yes, we
in
need
order
to do the
get
whole
to the
lot.
point where we can do like Dyson swarms later. We need to fix it now.
And we
maybe
need
this is
to
just me
stop praying
being-
for fusion and renewables to save us all on their own, because that's not going to happen with the way we're doing things.
Maybe this is just me being young and nihilistic, but I feel like a lot of governments are going to not do anything until it's far too late.
Ding,
Oh,
ding, ding,
definitely.
ding, ding. Welcome to
I-
the
Yeah.
It's like
don't
I get
think-
told quite frequently that that's a really nihilistic view I have, and it's like, well, yeah, but am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
What's-
No, this is
you're not
this is
wrong.
precisely the problem. That
Yeah, it's just-
there is no political or economic will to do any of these things that are required. There isn't even the political will across countries to sign fucking accords and actually get emissions down.
All that's happened, Sam, is you've become jaded a lot younger than we managed to. So, but fuck you.
Yeah, we still thought we still thought we had hope when we were in our 20s as hippies.
The reality is we have the science to solve our problems. We do actually have them. We do not have the political will. We do not have the financial investment to solve the problems.
Yeah, and this is gonna get very political a second, like we've not already done that this stream.
Oh no, this has been
Um,
very political this stream.
But we're all-
I want Will to come in and have a
money
rant.
Okay.
money is a restricting factor on so many things. To say it's a social fucking construct.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
we
yeah.
should find out a way to get rid of money. Absolutely.
That would be nice.
Yep.
That's brought everything down.
Yeah, sorry, that got a bit.
Well, Will's going to join us in a second because he just said he's nearly ready. So
Cool.
that'll be fun. So Will can have a rant about this too. But it is true. We could solve this problem if there was the political and financial will to do it. Yeah, like for example, if suddenly it was found that there was an asteroid that was made of pure gold and it was financially viable to go and mine it, we would have mining fleets in space. We have the technology. We can do it.
The other thing is that there's a lot of scare tactics around nuclear energy still. Like, we spent a solid 3 months in high school history in year 8 learning just about nuclear disasters.
Just about nuclear what?
Just about nuclear disasters.
Okay.
And so then it was basically up to the physics teachers to try and explain to us that actually no nuclear good, and we barely got that being top set.
Yeah. So I mean, we may not end. We may not end. We may come up with a cheaper way of doing the things we need to do to solve it, or we may find that governments are going, let's just go with the nuclear option that we know we can do now, and we'll get rid of things, and if we really bring down the cost of electric cars for people, and we bring down the cost of electricity for the public, and we put more nuclear power plants out there, we could solve the problem that way.
Yeah. See, I think my biggest concern is us getting to a point where most of humanity dies, and then it's just the rich left.
yeah. Well, they'll die then if that happens.
That I would love to see.
I would sort of love to see it, but also I wouldn't want to be around to have to see it.
Let's be honest. We do have a major sort of catastrophe or whatever. It is going to, this is the one a lot of people like were sort of say, obviously, like, environmentalism is something that affects us all, but we've seen in like natural disasters and things that have happened, that it is the poor people or whatever that get hurt first and get hurt hardest by this. Hurricane Katrina is probably the great example of that.
Hey, babe.
Good morning.
You saw how like the rich in New Orleans were like practically airlifted out, and then everyone else lost their fucking homes and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're going to build themselves little greenhouses to live in and fuck everyone else.
Yeah, but they're going to be in trouble the same way everyone else is when the power generation stops. Because when that stops, then so does water purification. So does all
not necessarily, Jenny, because if they build themselves little domes to live in, and they put it
depends on
big
how
solar panels and stuff like
that, and it depends on the knowledge as well. We talk about this all the time. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you're going to survive. You have to have the know-how. Yes. You have to know how to what to drink, what berries not to eat, what poison oak is. There's all kinds of things you have to know. The one thing I always stress about having money, all it does is give you more options. It doesn't make you any different than anybody else. You just have more options. It's not going to save you in an apocalyptic situation.
They end up building themselves something like any of you seen the film Elysium, that's what they end up building themselves.
I love that movie. I absolutely love that movie, and that's true. Yeah. If they could, they would separate themselves from us real quick. We do it in society. How come, I can look up in the hills and see mansions? We separate ourselves. The one thing about a Dyson sphere, because I was listening earlier, is it would take resources from other planets. And I'm not talking about entities. We would have to mine asteroids. We'd have to go to other planets because we would need the resources to cover a sun.
Yeah, but we were talking about a swarm, not a sphere.
There's only Mercury, Earth, Mars, and that's it for the stony planets.
There's plenty of stony moons.
See, but right now, the Chinese are building one of the largest solar arrays ever constructed, and they've been building it for the past 10, 15 years. When they launch it, we will all be able to see it.
China's putting a lot into their space program now. Because there's been a lot of talk. Obviously,
China just landed a rover on Mars.
They did.
Mm-hmm. Well, China is, because there's been a lot of talk about the US going back to the moon this decade, the Artemis project and so on. But what people don't know is China's planning a manned moon landing within the next 10 years as well.
They did a moon landing like a year ago with a probe.
Yeah. Now they've done a Mars landing. So
because the one favor they did is that they showed that the crap that our astronauts left is still on the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find it really funny how little has changed.
So I'm going to join Will here.
Awesome.
And I mean,
It's early
funny
here.
in the like least optimistic sense of like this is fucking hilarious, even though it's probably going to get us killed. Is quite the demonstration of how little we've learned. That we're still doing the whole space race to get people on the moon in the next 10 years.
And that's another thing. We take for granted that our species will be around another 100 years from now. That we won't annihilate each other. So
will I get to age 60? Let's find out.
Sam, I don't think you will.
I don't think that we will ever reach a utopian society because we will annihilate each other.
Oh, we're going to be Babylon 5 in the future. There is no way we're Star Trek.
Yeah, it will be our ancestors picking up the pieces of what... I mean, our inheritors picking up the pieces of whatever we have left.
You had to mention that I just started yesterday watching that again.
Which one?
B5.
It's really good.
I am still only partway through the first season because I'm watching it with my stepdad, but then a pandemic happened.
It's a great show.
Will, I have nieces your age. Well, actually, about 5-6 years younger, and I am not hopeful for them surviving at all.
That's what I'm saying. I try to hold out hope, but my cynical side, we're predictable. As human beings, we are so predictable. And my favorite astrophysicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson, talks about it all the time. He always says, well, I hope we make it. But like he's looking at it from a practical standpoint of like nothing has really changed. We go out of our way to try to bomb each other.
There's no political will to change.
Yeah.
So the politics is the biggest problem. It's not the science. It's
I am
it's not the
really
it's the political will.
I'm really hopeful that in 5 years' time, when most, if not all, of Gen Z are actual adults, that there is some sort of political push, because most people that I know, at least, that are my age, are very politically minded, but I don't know if we've been given the skill set to know what to do with that.
Well, whatever we do, it's not going to be enough, because probably in another 15 years, China is going to rule the earth, as they've been preparing to for the last 1,000 years. They're playing the long game. They know that they're going to win. They've been on Earth as an organized civilization longer than anybody, and they're going to continue to be.
And I agree with you, but unfortunately, the Chinese will rule, and we will have no say over that. You're right. They are. Look at what they're doing to Australia right now. Look what they're doing to sub-Saharan Africa. They have developed the northern half of Africa because they know what they're doing. Mm. They're not messing around.
They're also not afraid to spend the money.
Yeah,
but they're the closest to competent that we have.
Which is unfortunate, because some are competent as far as doing things for that, but not competent as far as looking after their own fucking people.
Oh,
and that's the scary bit.
But let's be real. We go to countries for their resources. China goes to their countries to occupy. So we won't go to sub-Saharan Africa because it won't pay out for us. The Chinese are willing to go there and build roads and build schools because they know that those people down the line will be loyal to the Chinese.
Yeah.
If not, they'll just force them to be anyways, because that's what we do.
China definitely has played the long game over the last sort of 15, 20 years or so in this. They, compared to the US in terms of, future sort of, should we just say future sort of say imperialistic prospects. China has definitely played the long game here.
Yeah.
And you know what? Right now, they are a bit of a paper tiger, but they're gonna get their stuff together. Right now, we have a larger military. They outnumber us,
The Chinese. This is the thing. This is the thing that the US needs to understand about this. That, beforehand, they've had in the 20th century, they had a couple of competitors, shall we say? Now you had the Soviet Union that could compete militarily, but was unable to compete economically.
Yeah, they were broke.
And Japan competed successfully economically for a while, but not militarily because they couldn't. But China is something that America needs to learn, needs to understand. China could quite easily compete with them on a military basis.
You know, it's not even about that, though, because right now China doesn't want a war because we buy their crap. That was the whole thing while the Chinese premier looked at Donald Trump like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you even doing that? They cut the Chinese cut contracts to the California farmers and almost bankrupt the California economy because we send our beef to China and Japan.
Yeah.
I think that the thing is that if even just considering numbers wise, like having a statistically significant portion of the world population is certainly going to do something for you.
Yeah.
But also, the Chinese, like Jeff was saying, they treat their people awful.
They do.
Absolutely awful. So
although I'm not saying that Western countries can be better. I mean, that's some of the crap that we do in our own countries is
they're overt.
Dreadful.
They're overt. We're covert.
The difference between soft power and hard power, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Our states will be, if let's put it this way, if we get too far out of line, our own nation states will not spare the rods. Let's put it that way. They will try and hit us hard if they felt the need to, and they have done on occasions before.
We always say around here, jokingly, we say, "Oh, you think you're free? Don't pay your taxes. Don't renew your license." You know, we say that all the time around here because it's an illusion.
Like, it absolutely is, and like where historically you might have been able to go, fuck it, I'm gonna go try and live in the woods. I think I know enough. That's not really an option now. Like, so, even if you wanted to try.
Even here, excuse me, I'm trying to think because people live out in the middle of the desert and the military is slowly starting to encroach on a lot of their land and kicking the people out, at least here in California. So like Sam said, it is becoming almost impossible to be a mountain person or go live out in the middle of nowhere. We have cities here where people have literally moved out to the middle of the desert. It's the leftovers from the hippie era, and they live in peace.
Yeah.
So it's possible.
It is.
I think another thing is that growing up, I was very much given the impression that the UN has significantly more power than it actually has.
Oh, they don't.
Definitely not.
Well, see, the thing is, like, if
the UN holds a bunch of pieces of paper and then a tiny amount of power.
Part of the problem with the UN is the way it's set up. The concept of veto is the problem in the UN. When you give you say to certain countries in the world, well, you can veto anything the UN does, then you've got a wet sock.
Power is not power unless you're wielding it. So if they got their forces together, they could probably take over like Nicaragua or something. But they don't. It's not like what we think it is. But so is our societies. I hear people all the time like, I'm just gonna sue somebody or I'm gonna call the cops. Like, at least here, our infrastructure has disappeared. So good luck with any of that. You know, we lie to ourselves and think that there's a system in place. It's not the 1960s.
I am in a really funny position where, like, I know that, like, if I decided to just dress mask a little bit and call the police, I could get them to do something, but I would have to have really solid evidence, and we're reaching the point where video evidence is not necessarily solid evidence anymore.
So here, same. in where I'm from, the cops will flat out tell you unless you have the other person's video, they won't accept it at this point.
So it's like, while in theory the structure is there, we've reached a point in technology where basically any evidence is difficult to admit.
Well, it's also considered objectionable. Like, when did it start? Who's the person taping? Why did they tape? What angle are they at? You know,
Yep.
why? You know, did they turn it off at a certain point, and why did they turn off the camera?
And what was going on before they started the camera?
Exactly. Because the cops will always ask, well, why did the person punch you? They're gonna want to know, you know.
Now, well, can I see the video of what happened before you started recording?
It's not rare if there's like a fight in a parking lot. Everyone pulls out their cell phones. First thing the cops do is walk into the supermarket, and they're like, "Can I see your security cam, please?" Because they know everyone's lying.
And
oh, sorry.
Go on, sorry, Will.
Oh no, I was gonna redirect it back towards the Dyson sphere and the fact that time travel isn't real, and I'm really angry about it.
Well, time travel.
We answered that question earlier.
Goddamn physics.
When I asked,
Matt.
you know, my thing is, I won't go off on it too much because I really am gonna have a sci-fi stream tonight, I guess.
See,
but entropic cascade failure is just an awesome concept that if you walked up to yourself, you could burst into, you could either tear a hole in the space-time continuum, because that's all Doctor Who, or you would literally burst into a million little atoms and be absorbed, depending on what reality you're from.
I find something really interesting in concept is we know we can use relativity to push people in theory forwards in time.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we got to a point where we could successfully, like, effectively have someone spend like a year in a ship and send them 200 years forwards?
I volunteer for tribute. Just make sure I have tons of weed and Oreos.
Yeah, but you might not have a planet to come back to. Or not.
I was going to say, would they, when they came back into Earth, would there be anything left?
Well, it goes back to the whole...
Or would they be our backup?
That's a really good question. It would be like that. Oh, like the Will Smith movie.
Just like,
would it be like Futurama?
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. I could finally get a bender that wouldn't stalk me. Get a big shiny robot that drinks beers and smokes cigars. That would be awesome.
You know, Shia, like, that's what I kind of think of you as a little bit. Well,
what's that?
A big shiny robot.
I thought you were going to call him a big shiny bender.
I had to tell that joke. A long time ago, someone called me a bender, and I had to look it up. And I walked around asking people, "What's a bender? No?" But we're doing science here, so time travel isn't real.
We're doing politics mostly lately.
See, a bender for me is just going out and having a ridiculous amount of drinks.
See, me too. Yeah. That's what it was to an American, was just getting hammered.
Yeah, I know what you mean if you say bender in that way, but I am going to assume you mean lots of drinks just for shits and giggles.
Absolutely.
I call it a lot. I call it a live stream.
What were you trying to say, Jenny?
That's why he's called Bender, is because he's a drinking robot.
Because he's always on a bender.
Yes.
So, again, if you woke up and it was the year 3000, you would be a living dinosaur. You would not reflect anything of anyone that was around. They would put you up. It would be strange. It would be strange.
They would try and teach you their language because you wouldn't understand a fucking word.
Exactly.
No, you wouldn't.
Not a word.
This is always the funny thing when people talk about if I could go back in time. Yeah, well, you your limit to being able to go back in time is a few hundred years, and at that point, you are probably not going to understand a single word.
I mean, in fairness, if you go back more than a few hundred years, you're probably going to suffer from dysentery quickly anyway.
Well, that's true, but I mean, if you survived that, if you could survive that, you would you probably wouldn't understand a single word that anyone. Well, you'd say you'd understand the odd word, but you wouldn't understand what most people were saying.
To quote a Paul Walker movie, and yeah, I said Paul Walker. I love Paul Walker. To quote Timeline, there's a difference between visiting the past and being stuck in the past. If you are stuck in the past, you would be in a living hell. First off, they'd spot your teeth. I don't care where you're from. They'd be like, why does that person still have their teeth? Why do they not smell bad? They'd spot you right away.
Why don't their clothes look like ours?
And depending how far back you went, you would also, like, if I went back 6,000 years in the spot I'm living right now, everyone would look at me and go, why is your skin a different color? If I could even understand them.
On top of that, if you went back in time, it wouldn't matter how far back in time you were. If you went back in time with the spot you are now, you'd be dead. Because our galaxy and our planet and our sun and everything fucking moves, so you cannot be in exactly the same point in the universe.
No, you'd be
plus the universe is expanding.
The same point relative to the Earth, not relative to the universe.
Haha.
Although if I did, there's no guarantee I'd be dead. We just would think I'd probably be dead.
Okay, even relative to the Earth rotates.
Mm-hmm.
Harmonica Man says the sentence of the morning. I would go back in time and save those whales like Kirk did.
Jen, if we're smart enough to build a time machine, we're smart enough to compensate for the movement of the Earth and shit like that, you know?
Are we though?
Okay. So Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson says this all the time. Like, I hope that we are, because the aliens that people claim that are around us are complete rubbish. They crash. And they only troll the Navy.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, Harmonica Man. I go back in time. I'm not saving the whales. I'm doing what Biff did in Back to the Future and like placing a few bets.
So
now, see, do you know where
I'm with you 100%, Jeff. With you.
Yeah. Talking about aliens, though.
That's not correct about the Navy. There's a mass of UFO sightings. In the past, in the 60s and stuff, around.
All right, you want to get into it? Let's get into it.
Nuclear silos and shutting down their operations and affecting their ability to do their jobs.
Okay, a UFO is an unidentified foreign object. That does not mean it's from a different planet. It does not mean it's just you don't know. What human beings do is we fill in the blanks. It's not extraterrestrial. It's just something we can't explain.
Yeah. Right, and
I'm
saying that there's been lots and lots of reports out of other branches of the service.
I think most people see nickel pyrite. I think most people see. Most people do not realize that our atmosphere is constantly being bombarded by asteroids. We have near misses by rocks all day long. You know, I think we attribute woo woo to things we don't understand. Like I said, though, I'm cynical because I believe in nothing. Like. If an alien showed up right now, I'd be like, oh, we're effed.
On top of that, we have elves and sprites.
Yes, exactly. Grainy video convinces me of nothing. If you've ever lived near an Air Force base, go out there at night and you'll see some spectacular stuff.
Yeah, you will see some weird shit there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I was laying in my cousin's pool in the middle of Arizona. He lives in Buckeye, which is built up, but it's out in the middle of nowhere. I saw an SR-71 flying over my head for free, you know, in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Basically doing circles around the Air Force base. So I think we,
UFOs are real. Aliens visiting us, not so much.
Yeah, because even like with the Roswell crash, you're rubbish aliens if you can get shut down by the Air Force. I'm sorry, I don't want to meet you, because then your technology is that much better than ours. Like, okay, we have CD
your
players.
technology is that much better than ours back in the 1940s.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. Like, where's my hoverboard? Where's my hover car? And at least my flying house like the Jetsons.
The thing people miss about aliens.
They never said in Roswell that the Air Force shot them down.
No, but what I'm saying is the Russians have claimed they shot down tons of. It's not just us. The Russians have some of the greatest footage of UFOs ever. Ever. You know, but it's the Russian Navy.
And because it's the Russians, everyone goes doctored footage. But the instant it's the US Navy,
I believe it that it's unidentified. But I'm telling you, if I can't tangibly, if it's not tangible, it's just a grainy video.
Considering as a little history video I saw yesterday indicates that the Americans couldn't shoot down the RAF on a training exercise. I doubt very seriously that they
can shoot down an alien who can navigate interstellar space.
Here's the real trick: is that all of the evidence of the aliens is removed by the Angel Moroni.
The thing is, what they did, the Americans shot down youth who were on a joyride that were drunk.
See, Secular Dave is saying exactly how I feel. So they had the technology to come all the way over here safely, and then they flubbed the landing. Get out of here. Get it. You're a rubbish alien.
Just like you navigated whole ass asteroid fields, and then you hit the rock you were aiming for.
We have
the technology to get all the way into Pakistan, unseen, unheard, to get Osama bin Laden, and then crashed one of the helicopters in his compound.
I'm not gonna. There's a few arguments with that. We think that we're the best of the best. We send 19-year-old kids with really big weapons.
No.
Then 30 and 40-year-old, and then 30, 40-year-old men who are in charge of them.
Well, my point is not anything about that. It's just that shit happens.
No, I agree. No.
Shit can happen to aliens too.
I agree.
I was referencing a video I watched yesterday, a minute ago. It's been out for a few months. It's went quite viral. And it's called "When Britain Nuked America."
I saw that.
Yeah. Which is it was amazing that they played this. I mean, I understand why the US government played this down, but they did a number of exercises. Essentially to see how prepared they were for a mass nuclear attack or so by Russian bombers. This is just before intercontinental ballistic missiles got through. Now they tested mainly with a lot of it being American B-52s and so on, but they had the British and Canadian Air Forces took part as well, and the Americans on 2 occasions couldn't shoot down the Vulcan bombers, and found out that if this had been real, Britain would have nuked the United States on 2 occasions. It was a bit embarrassing because they said they were positive and nothing could get through. They just couldn't shoot down. They could, but the 2 occasions the RAF proved that it could be done.
We've nuked ourselves countless times. We've nuked the ocean. We've nuked countless islands. We have 9 main test sites that we've nuked this country since the 50s. I'm sorry, since the 40s.
So we're crazy. You forgot the accidents too, where we dropped live bombs.
Yeah,
exactly. We're crazy. We are absolutely. That's why I'm saying it will be a feat of human engineering if we're still around 1,000 years from now.
It amazes me the people who think we have the tech to engineer something like the Rona.
Yeah.
Well,
we
right.
can't.
All right. Here's my thing on this, and this is kind of my little headcanon and stuff to break into kind of the little bit of the conspiracy. There are things that we can do, but to a degree that people want to say that we can is a little bit far-fetched.
So, Nikki, would you say that the military is like 40 or 50 years ahead of civilians, at least then?
I would say 20.
Okay. Because
See, I'm happy to buy that, but it still doesn't get you to the coronavirus being engineered
No.
It itself is too complex.
Not
I'm
even
happy to
here.
say, yeah, the military has shit we don't know they have.
And I'm going to tell you,
that's how militaries work.
I'm going to say this much too on that. The military doesn't care about fucking biological warfare. That's stuff for like the intelligence agencies and shit like that. That's the other portion of that. That has nothing to do with the military. Wants to go shoot people. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
they
spy
want their
on
big
people.
toys.
Point me there and shoot, so I can shoot that person. I
Point
totally
in the
get that.
direction and shoot someone.
We keep on going back to the main factor that we have really lofty expectations.
Oh, we do.
We, just like how I was genuinely angry when I found out that time travel wasn't possible in my lifetime.
I'm still holding out hope that warp tribe's possible within our lifetime. I know, Jen. I know.
I'm holding out hope that we still exist by the time I hit middle age.
All right, okay. Let's move away from the doom and gloom bit. Let's look at possible technologies. I think interstellar travel is possible. I think either we will get it through a form of warp drive or something along those lines. We'll discover the science for that. So we know space can be bent. There's no reason why we couldn't manipulate that if we have the technology. We just probably don't have the understanding at that level.
So
That's
I have a
conceivable.
novice question because you brought up Interstellar.
Yeah,
First off, that movie made me cry.
said not Interstellar. I said Interstellar Travel, not the movie.
Okay.
I didn't bring out the movie. But even if we can't do that, I think it's highly probable we can develop antimatter engines in the future, or prior to that, we can certainly build. We will certainly get to the point of being able to build fusion engines. We could technically do it now.
There's a lot of stuff that in
pellet-based
sci-fi we
fusion.
could technically do now.
Yeah, technically do now. This comes back to what we were talking about earlier with there isn't the political or the financial will to do these things. So
Exactly.
At this point, you're getting crafts which can get to 10% of the speed of light, and you can build quite large craft effectively if you build the infrastructure to enable you to do that. So in our lifetimes with the political and the financial will, yeah, we could have something like the Expanse where we're darting around our solar system.
Oh my god!
And
That
we're
would be so
contemplating
Now, do you know?
contemplating getting out to the rest of the galaxy.
I'm so down to fight the Marsies. I am.
Do you know what
No.
else would be nice? It would be if researchers, like, if we had the capacity to get researchers globally to play nice with their research.
Oh yeah.
That would be
Oh,
useful.
now I have Free Mars stuck in my head because I have watched way too much B5 in my life.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing too. Is all right. So, say by chance we do happen to at least get something similar to Expanse, or if not, even some various form of FTL. If we get to the FTL point, the one thing that's going to be detrimental to us going outside of our solar system is we're going to need a communication system that is better than just at the speed of light.
Yeah, if we can mend space to the point of having FTL, faster than light communications is probably on the cards as well at that point.
And there's plenty of theories on how to do it, including
is,
even
Jen.
quantum
We love you,
entanglement
Jen.
and stuff.
All right, we'll see all you guys.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't see why if we can develop the technology for faster than light, if we can come up with ways to bend space, if we can properly understand quantum mechanics to the point of getting a good grip on entangled particles and spooky action in the distance and stuff like that, there is probably a good chance we could figure out ways to communicate faster than light, and as well as travel faster than the speed of light. FTL is not off the table, either communications or discussion.
We don't understand how we could do it yet, but there are several hypotheses.
Yeah. So they're not off the table. There are issues with the fact that depending on how light cones truly work in a universe where FTL is possible, that having FTL may mean that time travel is possible. That becomes an issue because we're not sure what the true nature of the universe. However, that new study I was talking about earlier, which says that it looks like at the quantum level, the universe gives a big fuck you to causality. So if the universe doesn't give a shit about causality because the outcomes can be predominant to reasons, i.e., the reason only happens because the outcome happened. So
what I'm hearing, Jen, is time is fake.
Yeah, to a certain extent. At the quantum level, the quantum universe does not give a shit about time. That appears to be the case. That, contrary to what Einstein thought, if there was a god, he does roll dice because he doesn't give a shit. So this is possibly an issue for us in our understanding of what the universe is, because if causality is not an issue because at the base level of the universe time doesn't matter, then what is the aspect of time in our universe? What in the macro universe, why is there time if at the micro level it doesn't matter?
This is where things start to get a bit weird, and I am pushing the limits of what I've been reading here. But basically, it may well be that rather than these new findings saying time doesn't exist, it purely and simply be that time exists in a weird probabilistic way, the same way that quanta do in terms of energy distribution.
Well, to be fair, anything at the quantum level is kind of confusing anyway, because most of the time they break the laws of our normal understanding of physics anyway. So,
well, no, it's
this is true.
This is the fundamental misunderstanding of that. There, it's not that quantum mechanics breaks the laws. That the quantum mechanics follows its laws quite thoroughly, and it's hard, fast, and really. It doesn't follow what we
classical laws.
Well, not even that. It doesn't follow what we consider to be logical from our macro perspective. I mean, even relativity, even the theory of relativity does not follow what we would conceive as being normal. You know, the idea that links can contract and time can dilate just doesn't make any sense to us in the way that we experience the world.
But to bring it back to our experience, what we call time is what we experience.
Yes.
So we attribute time to moments. I always say that, like, life is continuous with or without us. You know, we use ourselves as the measuring stick. Like, my feet are here, it's this time, the sun's here. That means nothing. You know?
Here's something for you to think about. The universe itself could be moments of quantum snapshots, which is a concept that comes out of having having a multiverse. So if it's a state of quantum snapshots, it's not a linear progression. It's a snapshot followed by a snapshot, like frames on a film. In which case, from the universe is basically at each point in an entirely different existence. And we're just traveling in one possible outcome of those films. So, essentially, in that thing, our concept of time is just because how we've experienced this particular moment, this particular quantum moment, and how that comes about. So it means that
I find this is slightly the philosophy nerd in me coming out, but I find some of the implications in relation to like actual ontology, so to speak, that we get from quantum stuff really funny, because it's like the idea of an actual ontology might genuinely just be a flawed human concept in the first fucking place, even though it's logically sound.
So this is a problem. We are hunter gatherers. We apply our knowledge of hunter and gathering to the universe, and that's how we try to look at it. We look at it in the way that our brains have evolved to perceive it, and the universe actually isn't like that. It really isn't. The quantum universe behaves nothing like our experience, and even the macro universe doesn't really. It's just we perceive it in a particular way, but our perception is faulty.
Here is a fun question that one of my little siblings, I think my little sister, basically asked me: could it be that the universe is a simulation of itself?
So, you know what? That actually ties into what my favorite commander, William T. Riker, said. It's just that our mental pathways have become accustomed to our sensory input patterns. We get used to what we're around. And then we attribute it. We put times to it. We give it names. We call it things. But it's really just what our brains are perceiving at the time.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's not even that fancy.
I mean, it's not even like... I mean... Light's an electromagnetic wave. It's not colors. Colors is just the way our brain interprets it.
Arguably, the human body is just a series of waves.
Exactly.
Well, we're all energy. Everything is energy.
And, like, I'm going to ask a controversial question. Is blue real? I'm not talking about blue. I'm talking about when you see blue. Is it real?
Well, the electromagnetic wave is...
Exactly.
But you're talking that's a particular frequency. That's a.
Are you referring to qualia specifically there, Will?
That's a word I can't really identify because your country is much more educated than mine.
That thing we spoke to John about with the whole seeing colors thing.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to go off about. We don't see blue, but our brains perceive that we see blue. It's like if you see flashes of blue.
I think that we see blue in any meaningful sense of the word see, but in the use of the word we'd like to use the word see to mean, we don't see blue.
Exactly.
Yes.
Just how, like, right now, everything we perceive in our eyes are upside down because our eyes are like cameras. So the rods and cones in our eyes, it's kind of like this. And our eyes, so we basically are upside down. Like, everything we're doing is upside down.
Well,
I love that.
No, our brain flips stuff back around to the way it actually is.
But
we perceive it the other way.
Yeah, our perception is the exact opposite of what the world is presenting to us. But we flip it around.
Not only that, our vision, because of the way our eyes are constructed, has a blind spot right in the middle of it.
Yep.
Because our nerves, stupidly, join at the front of the retina instead of behind it. So the nerves themselves actually block our vision in the middle of it, which is why our eyes dart around all the time to fill it, and then our brain fills the image in together.
See, here's the thing, Jen, is that isn't even in my opinion, that's not even the worst bit about the design of the eye. My least favorite bit of the design of the eye is the way the nerve travels.
Yeah. It's not as bad as the other one though. The one that goes down and around under the heart.
Yeah.
Are you talking about our carotid artery or
No. The phalangeal nerve.
Yeah. Oh, the only reason I say "oh" is because I learned that from Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
You're talking about the one that's wrapped around the artery, right?
The artery, yeah. Which makes no sense. If you're an engineer and you designed it that way, you get a fucking taken off the case. They're no longer working on this project, dude. Especially if you're working on the giraffe. I mean, whoever got hired to do the giraffe, you're mucking out the latrines, mate.
Oh, I miss the giraffe.
She's like, fuck you, Jeffrey.
You could walk right up to the giraffes at the LA Zoo. But yeah, they are weirdly engineered. Let's just put it that. Even though they're not engineered.
There isn't a because we're not engineered. We evolved over time. We took things that worked, and as long as they worked good enough, that's all that matters.
Exactly, because from my limited understanding, I mean, I'm fairly smart and I do have a strong understanding of a lot of shit, but I can't break it down scientifically as well as other people can, because the words escape me most of the time, and most of the
they're
time
escaping
when it's
me now. It's getting too late.
I don't care, but just in general, from a design aspect, anything biological is shit.
More or less.
Yeah, by and large, that's accurate.
Ooh, they're trying to rename the James Webb.
Nikki, don't worry about it. Nikki, don't worry about it. This conversation's been above my head for about 20 minutes now.
The sad part is it's not too far above my head. I understand a lot of this shit. It's just I can't articulate it very well.
I am going to start winding up this stream because it's well after midnight for me, and I'm getting to the point where I'm not functioning.
Okay, really quick, they're going to rename the James Webb Space Telescope because James Webb was homophobic. Oh. Good old scientific America.
Yay!
Good old.
Hang on, how long ago was James Webb, though?
Like I said, we do go back, and I am extremely woke, so I'm all about retconning everything.
Yeah, so I'm not. This is my problem. If somebody was far enough ago that, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
I think the thing is that when you go back and retcon stuff, what you need to do is take into account the understanding they had at the time. Sometimes we just miss a person being a piece of shit. But sometimes they just didn't know better.
Exactly.
Are we gonna post rename Hubble because Edward Hubble was an asshole?
Eventually, they will.
And so I mean, yeah, there's lots of people out there who just weren't nice people. Even in science, there were scientists who were absolute cunts. And to be honest, if you're just going to rename things because a person's personality was shit, instead of because they achieved something good in their life, we're going to run out of people to name things after. We'll have to name everything after fictional characters. Not that I object with that either.
Right now we have
like Kirk and stuff.
There's an asteroid named Apophis that if we don't take care of it, eventually one day it's going to put us out of our misery.
Yeah. I think we've done enough doom and gloom tonight.
I'm not worried about Apophis because I'm pretty sure all of us will be dead and gone by the time it actually does hit Earth.
True.
Yeah. I
just like how somebody named something after Stargate, after a Stargate character.
That was more an ancient Egyptian
god, yeah.
But the person who, because I read Scientific America, the person who named it flat out said Stargate had was behind it.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let them name it Raw. There's a whole article about it.
Nice explanation, something mythology, but in reality it was sci-fi.
Yeah, in reality it was, but the sci-fi was named after the mythology, so
there
you go. All right, so Nikki, what you got coming up?
Possibly VTW this week, this afternoon or evening, late evening, but that's about it.
Awesome. Sam, what do you got coming up?
So we release episodes of Pub Religion every Wednesday at 5 Central Time PM, and this next week, coming week, the episode is going to be the difference between religion and a cult.
Awesome. That sounds brilliant.
Bring your you can send all your offensive and hate-filled DMs to Godless Sewing on Twitter. Because I have quite a few things to say in this week's episode, I think, if I remember.
Jeff, have you got a asterisk coming up for us?
Okay. Sorry, I'm going to plagiarise somebody now. Hi, I'm Godless Scummer from the Godless Scummer YouTube channel. Tomorrow you can watch me on. No, okay. Sorry, I just had to do that. Asterisk, yes. It should be tomorrow on Noodle's channel, and this is a landmark one. This is going to be our last one for a while. Now, whether we do a wrap up thing the following week, we haven't decided yet. But we have literally tomorrow is the last book in the series that's been published. So maybe we'll bring it back periodically whenever a new book's published. We don't know yet, but we'll see. But tomorrow, effectively, will be our last. It's kind of coming to an end in a way.
That'll be sad. I think you need a post asterisk party.
I think we might do, because the last few books have been a bit of a chore and they've not been enjoyable because of the. Let's be honest, the fucking racism in those books.
What you need is just to go back and get like a highlights reel.
Yeah, I need closure now. I've seen every episode. I need closure.
Let's put it this way. It was one of those things that when there was racist artwork in the 60s and 70s, it was off-putting, but it was, you can think, okay, it's a product of its times. Now we're dealing with books that were done 2 or 3 years ago. It's getting a little fucking tedious now to see that shit.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of, in a certain way, it's been a really great ride. But I think in a certain way, I think we're kind of looking forward to kind of getting to the end now. So that will be tomorrow, and obviously after that, be on One Ring's channel for Media Musings. Which, believe it or not, Jen is a co-host, although Jen hasn't had a chance to come on.
I think I will make it this week. So
it's Marvel month, I believe. It's
I know.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, brilliant! I'll enjoy that.
I might have to stick my nose in that.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
So
that's my immediate things. That's pretty much it for the moment.
Awesome, Jeff. Babe. Will.
Okay, hold on. Hi. Oh, no, that wasn't right. Hi. I'm Godless Sewing from the Godless Sewing channel. You should come and check out the Godless Sewing channel. Every Wednesday, Sam Chaos, Maddie from Science Side Up, and myself, we do a podcast called Pub Religion. It's 3:30 West Coast time on Sam Chaos's channel. Every Thursday, Jen from Jen's Little Corner, Kitty the Empress of Hell, Kitty the Atheist, and myself used to do the What the Fuck show.
We still
and
do.
Now
We've mostly been doing your show, but there's been reasons for that.
I'm doing that as a pure,
You're digging it in.
And every Thursday we also do the Sewing Circle. And tonight, on civilized time here in civilized California, on Lefty Island, I will be doing a sci-fi over everything stream. So bring your favorite sci-fi character, and I will fight you over it. Mm-hmm. Bring your fandom, your canon, bring whatever you want. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm watching Blake 7 right now. Terry Nation was awesome.
Okay.
I'm coming to fight tonight.
If I'm awake, I'll jump in there and we can have a Jakar versus Londo debate.
Oh,
that sounds
great. Write that down now. I have to write that down. That's a great topic, Jeff. I agree.
So if we're talking sci-fi, can I bring a Harry Potter character, given that Harry Potter is just shitty Star Wars?
Absolutely.
Oh,
I've seen them all. Absolutely, I've seen them all.
All right, I want to thank you all for joining me. It's been absolute blast. To Jenny, who was here earlier as well. Thank you, Jenny, for joining us earlier. That was great. We've certainly had a lot of fun. We haven't done much science tonight, but we've done a bit of it. We did a heap of history and politics. We've done a lot of topics.
I think the questions stopped after
the questions stopped once
an hour ago.
Well, we were running ourselves on the politics of environmentalism, basically.
And then that turned into the politics of technological
advancement. Yeah, so we basically ran the show ourselves, which was a really interesting discussion. I think it was absolutely brilliant. Most of what I do has already been chilled out, but I'm intending after I get back from my next trip to the Big Smoke. I'm intending on doing some more of these because I love doing these type of panels. Either this one where we try to get on the science and that side of discussion, or we do a more of a political social discussion when we do round tables. Aside from that, of course, more what the fuck shows. And Will and I have some plans for an offshoot of the What the Fuck show in the future, which will be based around music. There's also a project that I'm hoping to be working on with Kitty in the future, which will be, hopefully we'll get the first one out in the next month. And then on top of that, I am actually going back to doing pre-recorded content where I will be getting out and about in the new area I live in, new beautiful rural area I live in, which has absolutely beautiful countryside, and I will be talking science. And that should be a lot of fun too. So look forward to that, and look forward to hearing me say again, please, whatever you do, don't choke on the selfie stick.
I missed it. It's been a while. I missed it.
I haven't heard that for a long time.
Do.
No, you haven't. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.